Hey guys, my name is Rezael Deck, or Caffeine and Misery, and today I'm going to be talking about a very interesting deck for the EN format. People are going to say, ask why it's interesting when I show that I'm talking about the Fated One of Miracles, Rezael. Well, you see, there's a very simple reason. We are 2 lists behind Japan as of recording, so Rezael still has his dog. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to talk about the list. I'm going to explain some of my decisions, why I like this build, and let's go ahead and get into it. For the ride line, my grade 1 is the Knight of Heavenly Lasting Tranquilia, the original Alden grade 1 that has the ability that when it's rode upon, you reveal 3 different graded cards from your hand. You check the top 5 of your deck, call a grade 1, shuffle, and if you don't, you can call him, but you don't need to. And I like it more than the Rezael grade 1 because you get your choice of what you're calling. You're not just calling the grade 1 itself from soul. You're not soul charging a random card. I just personally really like that. The grade 2 I'm on is the Knight of Great Advance Excelsior, the Rezael intended grade 2. That when it's rode upon by a grade 3 Rezael, you can call a grade 2 unit from your drop zone. Again, I really like it. I think being able to take something as your discard and have it as a free unit is very good. Very simple, straightforward. And lastly, I'm on the Miracle Man himself in the ride line, the original one, the Fated One of Miracles, Rezael, who, when he attacks, you can counterblast 1 to call up to 2 units with different grades, whose grades are less than or equal, whose total grades are less than or equal to the number of cards in your damage zone. So typically you're probably going to be calling a singular column of like a 2 and a 1 or a 2 and a 0 pretty early on in the game. And he has the Divine skill that as an act you can Soul Blast 1 and shuffle all critical triggers back into your deck. For that turn, you gain an extra drive, and for the rest of the game, when you gain the Red Text skill, that when you would take your 6 damage, if the check is a non-heal trigger, you heal 1 and then lose the skill. You gain this as the player. It gives you a one-off miracle. It's pretty cute. Going to the main deck, I'm of course on 3 copies of regular res, and then I'm on 4 copies of the Fated King of Miracles, Rezael Vita, who on Vanguard Circle is treated as Rezael, the original one. And during your turn, he gains 5k for every Rezael in Soul and the original Divine skill of every Rezael in Soul. So technically speaking, if we ever get a Rezael with a different Divine skill, he can inherit that. You can run him, though you may not be getting the Persona ride. Along with that, he has a very similar attack skill. On attack for a single counterblast, you do the same Rezael skill to call 2 units from your drop zone with combined grades less than or equal to the number of cards in your damage zone, but different grades. And then as an additional cost, you can put a Rezael from hand into soul. You can call a 3rd unit from drop and to give all the called units 5k for the turn. So this gets you an extra call, bit more attacks, and better columns. And lastly, for my grade 3s, I'm on a single copy of Blessed Dragon Gabelius, who on place for a single Soul Blast, you can look at the top card of your deck, either leave it on top or bottom. If you bottom deck it, Gabelius gains 5k. And when he attacks, your damage zone has 4 more cards. Until the end of the battle, it gains 5k. And if it was placed by a Fated One unit that turn, and no rearguard has done a drive check yet this turn, for a single counterblast, it gains 10k and drive -1 instead of 5k, and can perform drive checks. The reason I'm only on 1 is you are already on a lot of grade 3s in the deck, so you can't really guard with him. You're already lacking a little bit in potential guard value. I didn't want to exasperate it with 2 or 3 more, and he's not your only win condition. He's not your only option for being a closer in your rear guards. And to go ahead and start talking about who one of those are, we're going to talk about the brand new from Divine Set 8. The Mythic of Miracles, Rifistor, who on place for a single counterblast, you can check the top 7 cards of your deck, add a Rezael to hand, and then if you don't add 1 to hand, you get to countercharge 1, so he refunds himself. And then when he attacks, if you're on a grade 3 or greater Rezael, he gains 5k. Then, if he was placed by the ability of a Rezael this turn, he gets 10k instead if you're on 4 or more damage. And if it's the 5th battle or later in the turn, your opponent has to call. Your opponent cannot call Sentinels to guard, so they can't perfect guard him. That is the 5th battle of the turn. The turn he is called by a Rezael while you have 4 or more damage. To go into some older Vanguard terms, this is a Limit Break 4 skill on Wave 5. This is a very weird card. I really like him as the new finisher. His power equals out pretty well to Gabelius, only a little bit below it, power-wise. And the guard restrict is very important. You can put all your drive check criticals onto him when you get perfect guarded on your red swing. Along with that, for grade 2s, I'm on 4 copies of Knight of Bowstreaks Nilbarus, who, when he's placed by the ability of a grade 3 or greater, or unit, he gets 10k power. And at the end of the battle attack, if you have a grade 3 or greater Rezael, for 3 energy and putting him into soul, you can draw a card, check the top card of your deck, and either put it on top or bottom. So he lets you scry a little bit. He lets you set up your drive checks, your damage checks. Continuing on with the grade 2s, I'm on 3 copies of Knight of Piercing Cadwalla, who at the end of the battle they attacked. As long as they attacked a Vanguard and you have 4 or more units, you can Soul Blast 1 and retire them. And you get to check the top 3 cards of your deck. Add a grade 2 or greater to hand. If you don't end up adding, you shuffle and draw a card. Either way you shuffle, but I really like them because they are... I happen to really like them in the deck. I like the deck thinning. I think it's really good deck thinning. And of course, for the last grade 2, I am on Protection Twincast as the regardless piece of the deck. As a blitz order, when it's played, you can give the attack unit 10k, and you can remove it from drop even if you've used your regardless piece or blitz order for the game. By removing it from the game, you give the attacked unit power equal to its grade times 5,000. So you get into use without guard value. Like I said, you're not actually on a lot of guard value in the deck, unfortunately. Nothing in the deck gains any value aside from some of the triggers. So you're on a lot of 5k guards and just triggers and perfect guards. Those are your only numbers to protect with. I really like the extra protection Twincast gives you. Going to our grade 1s, I'm on 3 copies of Knight of Strict Spear Severus, who, when placed by a Rezael, you can Soul Blast 1 and give your front row 5k for the turn. And at the end of the battle boosted, as long as it's placed by a Rezael this turn, you can bind it to draw a card. I really like him. Again, he's more deck thinning, he gives extra power, and he's another way to be cycling Nilbaruses constantly. Along with that, I'm on 2 copies of Aerial Sage, who, when he boosts, if you have a Vanguard with Rezael in the name, he gets 5k. And when it specifically boosts a grade 3 Vanguard Rezael, by discarding a card from hand, you can countercharge 1 and get an extra 2k. So this is a way to set up your drop before your Rezael calls. You get your resources back, so you're going neutral on how much you're actually spending on Rezael's call. Very simple, very straightforward, and you only need 2 because you can always revive him back if he somehow gets removed. That way you can maintain your resources. I'm also on 2 copies of Magic of Threaded Connections Paradigm, who, when placed during the main phase for a single counterblast, you can choose a card from hand with grade less than or equal to your Vanguard and call it, and if you call a card, you draw a card. Very simple, more deck thinning. Along with that, as long as you have a grade 3 or greater Vanguard and 4 or more units, she gets 5k, so she becomes a 13k booster. I really like her as another deck thinning option. My biggest philosophy with this deck is deck thinning, deck winning, hitting fast and hard, while still doing your best to survive. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, in the English format, we still have access to Saragon and Rezael. I'm currently on 3 copies. The reason I'm not maxing out is because of the condition to have more rear guards than your opponent. A lot of decks do remove their A lot of decks do remove their front row rear guards for cost and stuff, so you're likely hitting it. However, against certain matchups, you won't be hitting it, so this won't be live after turn 2. That's why I'm only on 3, because later in the game, he's not really the one you're going to be cycling and calling out a lot. That, in my opinion, is mainly going to be bringing back Paradigm, so move it around if it gets removed. But if you do have more rear guards than your opponent, or you've used a normal order this turn, it gets 5k. Then at the end of the battle, you can retire them to check the top 2 cards of your deck. One goes to hand, the other goes to bottom of deck. The biggest reason, and I'm on 3 too, also, is you'll notice right out here, I'm not on any normal orders. I'm not using the order package, no T-faults, no nothing. And the reason for that is I don't think the order package is actually that good at this point. I think there's a lot more really strong in archetype support that makes up for what the order package was filling originally. I do think we keep Sargon because Sargon is a very powerful card, and if in matchups where your opponent is constantly retiring their rear guards, they don't have as many, or you can easily remove them yourself, I think Sargon is a very vital piece to have access to. Because it's more deck thinning, it lets you sort of manage your deck in the way you want. But because it's not as guaranteed anymore, and there's too many good cards to justify playing the order stuff, I don't feel comfortable maxing them out. Lastly, for the grade 1s, for perfect guards, I'm using all perfect guards, no sanctitude, because I'm on Twincast. You really need to be able to maximize how much you're guarding, like I said. Rezael's biggest plus is that he is recursive and a goddamn cockroach. So you can stay alive for a really long time, you can manage your damage as to hit exactly where you want to hit it. You don't really need to push yourself to the 4 or more for the Gabelius or Fistor until you are ready to kill. Lastly, let's go through the triggers. Obviously, 8 criticals, 4 of them being Blade Feather Dragon, the Soul Crit. The reason for this is you do use a lot of Soul Blast in this build. Kadwala you can use pretty much every turn once you have them in rotation. Sabrus is on place by Rezael's skill is a Soul Blast. And it gives you another option to go through without having Soul Blast Reses, so you're not reducing your Fated King Rezael Vita's power. But like I said, 8 criticals. I'm also doing 3 fronts, 20k guards. Again, I think the defense is very important. I think that's the most important aspect to this deck that it's missing because of the sheer amount of grade 3s you're on. I'm on 4 regular heal triggers, no effect heals, because their base value, guard value is too low, and whether or not they'll come up is variable. And lastly, for my over trigger, I am on the Spiritual King of Aquatics Edospharo, which is the generic over trigger that when it's drove check, you can take card to drop out of back to hand and give a unit a critical. I don't think the over trigger that you play in this deck matters that much. I personally think Edospharo is the best one, but you could pretty much get away with any of them. Meridzombia, the yellow one that wipes the board, that one can be very powerful for certain turns. That one can set up for bigger swings and get you set up to guard better in the follow-up. Nyx Azalea, it's a 5th heal on drive check. So you can manage your damage really well, and even if you don't end up calling anything, it's still an option. It still gives you access to maybe call a booster you didn't have access to because it was damage checked, and you can get back some of your other damaged combo pieces. Walnut, you have 2 standing rear guards when you attack, so you can choose to do like Gabelia, as a rear guard. You can keep Nilbarus around and do it. Funny enough, Refister is specifically the 5th battle, so you can't really choose that to get double Sentinel Restrict. But that's kind of okay still too, because you can make it the 5th battle, swing. They can't perfect guard that OT, restand, swing again. Either they perfect guard it, because they can now, or they have to take it because they're out of guard. But guys, gals, everyone, this is my Rezael list. This is what I personally think is the most fun version of it and the most interesting. But what do you guys think? Do all the YouTube stuff, like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz, and I hope y'all have a great rest of your day. Latest.